Yeah, I'm here. So let's start. And welcome to another session with Top Skill. Um, this is Sam Octo for today's class, and today I want us to basically I want to review basically what we've done so far before we go into today's topic. So we started off with what's design, introduction to design. That was our very first class. In this for just to have a recap, and for those who didn't attend previous session or didn't on this, so this is why I feel we should go through everything. And for those who are listening to us on YouTube or Facebook, welcome to Top Universe, organized by Top Skill to upskill people from zero knowledge to enough experience to get jobs and get roles in the tech space. We started off with design. This is design tracks, and we started off with design. So we talked about design, what it is, and we explored the fact that design is a way we communicate information, the way we solve problems, and we talk about solving problems, visuals, and we explore the fact that design is has art, is a form of art, but it's very nature. Design is a problem solving tool, just like we have other tools of solving problems. Design is used to solve problems. So when you're creating any UI, working on any design of any sort, you have to have it at the back of your mind that the purpose of what this design you're working on is to solve problems, not just to create some sort of faces. Then we also talked about the design principles. We talked about why design principles are important, and I also mentioned that designers play a very important role in building digital experiences. Our role is so important that designers have the power to influence how human behavior at scale, globally. When you think about products like Facebook, like WhatsApp, those platforms were designed to them out, but it was the designers thought who created the UI, the interface, the experience as we have it today. One typical example that will come to mind will be the feature of reels that we have amongst most social media platforms. Basically, we just keep scrolling and scrolling, and it's got that you've spent hours on that platform watching one video after another. It's a vision and something that's helped those big tech platforms to keep people on their apps for longer. And those things were created by designers. The buttons, where the fact that you don't even have to touch the video, it just scrolls down by itself in places like Facebook. Even YouTube, the next one scrolls. I continue watching it. It's a testament to the level of work that designers, companies put into creating those experiences. And we can see how data is influencing the life of users. You can see how you end up spending hours that you would have probably just consuming content. That is the power of designers. Designers have the power to change human behavior, to influence people, to design, to create things that would change the life of people or lead people in any direction that we choose. That is why we are so powerful in our role. I just want you to understand the power we have as designers. And it's not just to create graphics and stuff, it's also part of it, but our core function is to create experiences, lives, and influence human behavior. And we also want to also consider the fact that when we create these solutions, when we create solutions using design, our design is also meant also solves business problems. I think one of the problems that designers do have is communicating their value as designers to in wherever they work or with clients. Our role as designers. Okay, so I hope someone is showing something. I hope person can see properly on YouTube. Okay, so I'm going to continue. So our role as designers, especially in the area of business, we see that um, if a platform is properly designed, are able to use that platform. And just go back to the example I made earlier of the reels. I mean Instagram reels, YouTube reels. I don't know if it's called reels on YouTube. You get the idea, that feature we have on that platform. It's called that if because of those features on YouTube are able to even make more money because they can now create short videos and more people would more people would discover those content creators and perform whatever function that whatever thing the content creator wants to sell. The content creator can even sell to more people because they are now reaching more people. And also when you talk about the companies who build these features, who are design centered, who put design first, because of that they are able to create solutions that are user centered. If you are if this set, for example, if you have a set of people that are going to patronize you, patronize your business, it's best for you to ensure that those people have the best experience. Either it is customer experience with physical stores or it is digital, wherever space it is. Your customers are the ones that will pay you money. So if you give them a good experience, they will definitely come back. And for the in digital space where we are focused on, we see that designers' role is to create those experiences. And when you have a good experience, people will patronize or will visit that platform. And whatever premium or feature that involves payments that the platform has would be easy for users to want to opt in and pay for those features because it's a good experience and they're able to perform their function. The problem they came to solve on that platform is easy to solve and they're able to solve it. That was what we talked about on the introduction to design. This is Paul, and Paul Ran is the father of modern design, graphic design, and this was very interesting quote that he made about design. Then we also talked about user interface design. We explored a whole lot. I think that was one of the most content field class we've had. I mean, it was a rush, but we talked about a lot of things from what user interface design means and why it is important. We also showed examples of user interface design, and when you think about user interface design, you think of what you see when you visit a website. When you search, when you put a URL, when you click a link, what you see when that link opens is an interface. When the windows you are looking at, if you are using your PC, that phone you are looking at, the buttons, the color, the icons that you see on your screen right now is user interface design. It was created and it was created using visuals. It is different. I want to take note that user interface design is graphic design. The design principles that apply to graphic design would bear some semblance in user interface design, but don't design the same way you design flyers. You don't design user interface that in that way. You don't create UI. You don't create user interface for website and mobile apps or other digital experiences the same way you create flyers. You don't do that. In fact, it's I need to emphasize how wrong it is for you to ensure that your mindset, especially if you are someone who has experience with graphic design, when you're coming into the UI, you have to change your mindset and your mental model around designing for the internet because it's different.
All right, thank you. So someone is complaining about the previous link. Please let's try to resolve that. If there's a problem from our end, probably you can drop the link again since it was probably disconnected, I guess. Yeah, so since you can hear me today, of course, we're talking about wireframing, and of course, Samuel has explained a couple of things regarding wireframing. Following what I see here on the presentation, I'm sure he has explained a couple of tools such as Blasmic, Figma, Draw.io, Miro, Mural, and also Just in Mind. These are tools used by a lot of companies, and there are many more. There are many more tools. There are many more tools. We have, of course, we also use even Sketch. I mean, these are actually design tools, but they can also use for wireframing. But these other tools you're seeing here are specific, tools that were built for wireframing, especially. We are going to be doing a couple of wireframing, practical, or maybe I would call it like a hands-on session right now on wireframing. Uh, but let us see what we can come up with. Okay. Okay, so I believe you guys were in the previous class where we worked on a couple of designs. Of course, I'm just trying to create a simple frame, and we're going to while talking about the concepts, we're also going to come up with something very practical, right? We're going to come up with something very practical. I'm going to explain a couple of things I feel you need to understand, to avoid being confused by the difference between wireframing, which is also regarded though as low fidelity most times. Though I've also seen a couple of designers, trying to separate wireframing from low fidelity and also high fidelity. So we kind of have like these three steps. But from a more broad spectrum, I see more people categorizing wireframing as something that is also the low fidelity, right? And yeah, so there are just a couple of shapes we're going to use. The rectangles, we're going to have containers for describing images, containers for also describing maybe sections. Um, yeah, containers for describing the sections. So talking about the elements of a wireframe, I think basically we should be looking at three broad parts. We should be looking at how to render informations on our design, how to render the ideology of navigation, and also the interface itself that people will interact with. So I'm going to drop a simple artboard here. I'm going to drop a desktop iMac, which is 1280 by 720. As you can see, I have my artboard. Pretty straightforward, right? So I have my artboard. We are going to work on two designs, but let me just go ahead and drop the second. Let's work with iPhone 13. I'm just going to give that a border radius of 50. Okay, yeah, just to get things straight, right? We have that. We have the iPhone design. We also have the Mac design. So let's assume we are currently in a session with a client and maybe they want to build a product for, we'll say like a pharmaceutical business, right? Just like an example, a pharmaceutical business. Right now, we don't have like concrete detail, and of course, this is where we start thinking of the information architecture and also the use case and the business model in detail. So that is actually going to cover a couple of things like research. You understand? So of course we have to do a lot of research first before jumping on designs. But we're making an assumption that we've done a little bit of research and we have an idea of what we want, especially on the website. So maybe we need a website where we can sell pharmaceutical products and also advertise a couple of pharmaceutical products. So we are going to assume that you've conducted research, user research. We've discussed a couple of potential users, potential buyers that might purchase the products from these companies. And then now we're trying to come up with the pattern, right? So the pattern, I mean the wireframing pattern. So basically, what you might want to do is probably do this on a sketch, maybe like on a piece of paper, or you can just go in here and directly start the implementation. So I'm going to use more of rectangles and oval shapes to denote a couple of things. Yeah, so for our images, we are definitely going to be using a rectangle. I would also prefer to have a very light shade, so you won't have you'll be able to visualize things properly. Something very light, light shade of these objects. Most times you might want to have like uh, you might want to have like something describing your image, and definitely you're going to see something like this most times. You can end up grouping these items together. There is nothing wrong with that. So you can actually decide to work with a simple stroke without having a feel. Yeah, so that works as well. So let's first fix this. So just an example of how to create like your wireframing component, right? So this is going to describe and denote an image. So we can also add a stroke here, and just as an assumption, we have like a container that we can move around and also adjust to denote images, maybe like a logo, for example. We can have it sit around here to describe that we have our logo right here, and maybe I'm just going to use Control D or Command D to duplicate this and say, okay, we're going to have like a couple of images, just an assumption. We have a couple of images sitting around here. Let's assume these images are going to hold like pharmaceutical products, right? And maybe we have like so this is more like our navigation somewhere here. As you can see, this is currently covering our logo. So basically, what I would want to do is to send it to the back. We still have our logo. Always remember, I definitely think, yeah, just as an advice and as a personal decision, I think it's always good to have your margin well stated. Looking at this right now, it's part of our design or wireframe might be looking, I think it's looking too much in terms of the spacing we have here. So what I might want to do is select this artboard, go down to layout grid, add a new layout grid, change this to column, and then I love to use 12, 12, 16, okay. And also for the margin, yeah, 80. Yeah, so I can select these items and just make sure I tidy them up properly and also, yeah, setting properly. Okay, so of course, on your website, you definitely want to have a description. You won't just, showcase products without having like descriptions. But what we're doing right now is just trying to, understand the position of things, right? Understand what this would look like. By the time we start adding the main components here, or the main items here, be it an image or text, so we're still, yeah, so for the menu, of course, this is going to be part of your research as well. What are the major pages that you want when it comes to navigation? What do you want users to be able to like, navigate to? Maybe you have like a store, so let's assume the store is a different page, right? And maybe you also have some other pages. So at this point in time, well, you don't need to focus on things like typography or color whatsoever. You can decide to just work with your boxes. And remember, this is just an example, right? The idea that I'm using this kind of shape does not mean you must use exactly the same shape, right? So you can just work with this. This also works perfectly. Yeah, so it's not necessary you stick to this. And also remember that if your layout grid is currently affecting your design, you can also drop the opacity or even turn it off when you're not using it. Okay, so I think just turn it off with this. Okay, so speaking of the menu, we're making an assumption that we don't know the exact amount of items we need on the menu right now. But of course, I think we need to. I think maybe 16. And yeah, always aim to use your alignments properly. You can distribute this. Make sure you have a proper distribution. You can zoom in and adjust with this item. You can adjust the spacing you have in between these items. Um, Okay, and of course, as part of your research, you should know what are the core things that this is kind of like a platform, which means we're definitely going to have like a button, right? So of course, you can just easily reuse this item. During wireframing, you don't need to consider things like border radius, things like color, as I said before, typography. You can basically try out a bunch of things. Just I think the major thing you should be looking at is trying to make sure you you get the navigation design, the interface design in terms of the position of things, and also the idea of the information, right? So, for example, what should go after putting a product here? Let's say this is like a bottle of medication. Yeah, so we're definitely supposed to have a description. So at this point, do you want to have a description sitting on the image? Do you want to have a description sitting on the image, or you want to have a description sitting right in the image? Of course, this should also have like maybe like a title and a description, right? Not just a description. Um, yeah, it might also have a price, like probably by the site. So I think it depends on, yeah, of course, back to the research. So when a user sees this website, do they really want to see the product and the description and the price on the image? Is it going to look distracting? This is pharmaceutical stuff. You might have seen some designs like that on maybe like fashion platforms, yeah, fashion related platforms. But when it comes to this our use case, is it a nice idea? I also think it depends on what the designer put up. But for now, let's just leave it at this position. Maybe this 5 and the major text here, so we can just say okay, so we can just say we have like the name of the tablets or the drug and also a description. Then maybe we have a price, probably like $50. And all that you need to ask yourself right now, of course, this is just wireframing. We're already putting our information on this page, especially trying to get a good layout for this particular item. Now, this item is looking small. Uh, does it have to be bigger? Should it remain small? These are decisions you have to make. Yeah, decisions you have to make. Um, yeah, and remember, we don't need to touch colors, right? We don't need to touch colors. Of course, this is a pharmaceutical product, so I don't think we need this kind of wish list or favorites. Yeah, but we might also need like add to carts. So maybe you want to first select this item before having that modal or something asking you to add to cart. So this is what I mean. Currently, we know that we're going to have like two uh, actions here, which can probably be your sign up and login. So let's try to make sure we get a good size. And of course, I always say make sure you have items that are together should stay together. I'm going to group this bunch of items. Also change the so I can say about, I can say store, I can say blog maybe, I can say what do we say here? Uh, Applications. I don't know. So just by putting these items, of course, our spacing has changed. So I have to tidy things up. I can also reuse all of these items for the button. So I'm just doing proper alignment here, right? And now we have login, sign up. We know that we're expecting to have something like this here. You need to also think maybe you want to have some level of rating, but I mean it depends on the product. In our context, I don't think we need that. So all we need is this. I'm going to duplicate some of these items so to look have like a better description. So what happens if the description is looking long? You see, so you have to really test all these. Yeah, you have to really test that as well. So maybe you want the description to just sit around this corner. It means you're going to have like a bunch of empty space here. I think I would prefer to have something like this and probably drop this size. Okay. Now I'm going to group some of these items together. Also, you need to be very, you need to also focus on like the spacing you have between items, and also the alignment between some of these items. So let's, yeah, assuming we have something like this. Let me try to apply a little bit of spacing here, and maybe reduce the fonts, probably like 14, which means I have to now reduce the spacing. Okay, so we still have space here, so we can also adjust, right? Can, can have more items. Okay, good. So this is more like our description. I'm going to just go ahead and group these items together. At this point, you can duplicate, right? You can just duplicate. So you see that this is kind of like bigger than these other items. Let's replace, right? Let's just replace and make sure this works for us as well. I'm going to push this container outside so we can still have it there. Okay. All right. So this is what we have. Looking at this, I don't think we have enough space in between. So let's go ahead and do some grouping again, right? So these items are together. This is together. So of course you can just create one, make it a component, right? And reuse it. I'm just going to make sure this is balanced, okay, properly balanced. And now we can put our space in between. Okay, so this is just like a set of item. I think one other thing we need to consider is, of course, we need to have an header, right, where we can describe, what we do as a business. You need to at least put that, but not compulsory. So as I said earlier, it depends on what you're trying to show, and that speaks of the information design that I made mention of. You need to consider things like the general layout of the page. What do you want to achieve at the end of the day? You need to also yeah, I don't think you need to pay any attention to interactions. Yes, you don't need to pay any attention to interactions at this moment. We're only trying to make sure you put things in place. We're just going to use this specific item to design our header here. Okay, just going to move this item down a little bit. And yeah. Okay, so also make sure I group these items because they're meant to stay together. I can now go ahead and group both. Mhm. Okay, so yeah, we have our logo, we have the navigations, which means this is going to link us to some other pages. We have our heading, we have some product items. Let's make this more descriptive by bringing in, like maybe we're expected to have a text, right? Yeah, so always remember you can make things look better by, making sure you have the proper amount of spacing that you want, right? So just make sure and you need to take note of these things, right? So when you have some level of spacing, you need to take note of this spacing. So when you're working on some other components, you would also try to make sure you have the same level of margin instead of having like, multiple levels of margin in between some of these items, right? So it's always good to take note of that. Yeah, remember we also have you can turn on the layout preview to see that to check if everything is still aligned properly. You see, we have made a couple of mistakes already. This has gone outside the scope, right? Outside the margin. So we can easily adjust some distance again, right? Okay. All right. So let's turn that off once more. So let's just put a very, descriptive. This can actually sit in the center. So of course, it depends on what you're trying to present in here and how important it is. So like, of course, you want people to read it, but I mean, is it something? Is it the main? So I can have something like this. I can just use maybe like 100. I think that's too big. Maybe like 80, and I can say. Um, best, yeah, yeah, let's say best medical products. Okay, so we also want a description. Yeah, so because when you say best medical products, of course, you need to describe. I mean, how do you mean? And of course, when you're working on wireframes, there are a couple of plugins you can use to generate some of these texts for you. I will drop some in the link on the chat. I will drop some links in the chat. So, but for now, I'm also going to make use of this dummy text I have here, which is the Lorem text. That is quite small, so let's use 20, and also let's adjust this properly, make it sit properly in center. We also have a good decent amount of space, just like that. Okay, make sure it's sitting in the center, and also remember to check the spacing around in between, right, in between these two items. Okay, so maybe you also want to have some sort of call to action here. Yeah, so you might want like a call to action here. I think you can also reuse this, except you don't want to have the same size of button. Maybe you want this to be bigger, but I don't see reasons for that at this stage. So we can say maybe we want them to be able to start browsing for medications, or maybe go to store or visit shop, right? Visit shop, you can adjust this. So of course, when you start, implementing the main design, I would advise that most of these items, you make them components, and also you can utilize auto layout so that, well, not compulsory. You can utilize auto layout so that things would fit in properly. Wrap this properly on this text. So for example, this is what I mean. We have this text right here, and using auto layout, which I think is Shift A, it's a shortcut, right? So we have auto layout. You can easily position this item in the center, give it some level of margins, paddings. Also, if you want to apply border radius, so right, you create a button. Just using this item, you can apply a border radius if you want to 5px, and while I adjust, it automatically takes shape, right? So you might want to use this. So you might want to use auto layout. So remember, putting the border radius there is not like a necessity. Yeah, so you can have something like this, and of course you're already coming up with a wonderful wireframe. So let's see, we already have a good wireframe design. Of course, you can continue, as I said earlier, navigation and interface. So we know that on our interface we want to put this as a description. Remember that even though you have this, the background probably should be holding a specific image, right? So this is something you should know. And also, if you wanted to go with this, that's also fine, right? Just to show that this should be an image, definitely go with this. Remember, you have some items here, so you can group these items because they are, of course, meant to be together. Bring it on top. So you have your items, that should be an image. This should also have an image, right? You should also hold an image. Yeah, just make sure it aligns properly. Let's make sure it aligns properly. So of course you can explore some of those tools that I mentioned earlier, or you can also do your stuff with Figma, right? So now we have a very simple. Maybe I should stop here, or we can also proceed. So remember, I said we're focusing more on the layouts right now. So how many products do you want to show on the fly? Is it 3? Is it 6? Is it 10? Do you want to put like some options here, asking them to go to page 2 or page 3? You've seen stuff like that. Also, make sure you're careful with spacing, as I said earlier. So for me, I will probably go ahead and group these items, right? duplicate, and so I'll be able to track the spacing in between, right? The space in between the set of items. Yeah, so I think it's perfect, right? So, but if it's not, you definitely see distribute. Let's see, yeah, of course it's perfect. So you can also adjust that spacing, right? So let's stick with what we had earlier. Okay, so you might also decide to say, oh, you don't want to go this layout, and instead you want to go the route where you have this set of items, like scrolling, right? You want to scroll through this set of items. Let us do something here to cover some of these things. Okay, so let's assume you want to scroll through. So you might want to put something like this, right? So because you want to be able to scroll through this set of items. And let's assume these are like some of the top products you have. So you can just duplicate this item and say, okay, so we have that we have this right now. Um, yeah, so this is just very simple, very basic design. Yeah, so in case you need to put like some images that, of course, should look circular, right? You can have something like this, maybe more like a grid. So maybe you have some other items at this point. Of course, you don't want this to be centralized, right? You want to properly aligned to one side, and also not so big. Let's go with 50. So as you can see, the text here is of course bigger than what we have here, but it's equal with what we have here. So sometimes you just need to make sure you're not using like so many different sizes. So you need to have at least a reasonable level of consistency, even with your this is not a final design, remember, but you just need to make sure you watch out for some of these things. So I'm going to put back our think we're supposed to have a structure so we can identify the. Mhm. Yeah. So even if you're like passing out an information that would make them select a choice, maybe you are saying start free or see pricing, so start free, uh, let's say for business. So let's say this particular product we are designing right now also renders, business. Yeah, also renders. So we can just say business. So we also render like business service, maybe medical services to businesses, right? So now we need to also tidy up, make sure we have this level of spacing. Okay. So now we've been able to group the items on this page. We have our header, we have our recent products, and also as an assumption, right? So we are making a lot of assumptions right now. As an assumption, we want to have like more, a page where you have like more items trying to showcase this product. So I'm going to ungroup this item. I just need one of this for now. Take these guys off. Make sure I have that item that can show probably all our products, maybe all our products. You can just bring this down and say all product. Right now, this is wireframing, right? This is basically wireframing. So I can say all medical products. So if you notice one thing, we are maintaining this specific size across like some of the headings. We can also go ahead and utilize the same size for this one here, right? Also still have just to keep that level of consistency. Also make sure we're checking out the spacing amongst these items. So we have this image, maybe the circle is too big, can chop it a little bit, probably around here. I think this is fine. Group this so that it can stay together, align it properly to the center, and then probably reduce the amount of space we have here. It's kind of too much. Yeah, so all medical products, make sure it's in center. And this is going to hold like the medical products, right? So let's also observe the spacing we have in between. I'm going to go down to inspect, and I'm going to try to see the spacing here. So we have 26, right? Between these two items. Let's see if we can maintain that space as well here. So click this item, and now we have 34, drop it down to 26, right? So I think we can proceed to, have like multiple products here. The question we should be asking ourselves is, how do we have multiple products? How do we like see the names of these products? Yeah, because of course, pharmaceutical names, pharmaceutical products might have like long names, right? So now will this layout work for us? Personally, I doubt. And personally, I think I would prefer to have the detail of this product show by the side. Let's see if that can work for us. Let's try to implement that. So if I go ahead and copy this guy, just bring it down here. So of course, the price can be in a different position at this time. Yeah, and also maybe smaller. And so maybe we're also trying to say, okay, we have like a previous price and we have a new price, right? So you can have like a slash price, right? This can be bold. Then you can, put your slash, of course, and have like a slash bar. Maybe you can use like a different color, but at least not on the wireframe. Not like doing that on the wireframe is a problem. It's not a problem at all. Of course, we can just use like red, right? To indicate that. I don't think there's a problem with that at all. Let me fix this properly. Come down here. Also, yeah. So of course, I need to ungroup this. So having something like this is not bad on your wireframe. You're just describing like this is not meant to be. This is meant to be like the slash price. Let's say it was 50 and now it's 45.99. Just an assumption. So we're still using the productivity tablet. Let's just try to see if we can adjust the items. And then one thing you can put here is to say maybe when they get to this point, dot dot dot. So which is telling them to probably click on it to read more, right? So we can group this item, of course, align this properly as well. Group this, yeah. So make sure we have that consistent spacing. So we also did a very simple grouping here. So we can also align properly and group, right? And what we can even do here is to even add like auto layout and position things properly. Then also add maybe like a level of margin. So this is what I mean. We can have like maybe 20. I think I can just put 20 here and maybe like a stroke, right? We know that we have one product. I can make that stroke light, maybe like 10. Okay, so we have one product just here. We can duplicate this. Yeah. So this might be, you might want this to be scrollable as well, but I don't think that's what we're trying to achieve here. We want something that can just be displayed on this page, and I have a feeling that having just two items, of course, will not work for us. So let's also go ahead and drop this sizes a little bit. So let's go with 20 here. Even 20 might even look too big. So let's drop down to 18 or 17. For the item here, let's drop it down to maybe 13. And also reduce the spacing here. Okay, not bad. Make sure we have 3 lines so we can have enough space to also yeah, show some of these items. Drop down, drop this, okay. Probably make this bold. And also for our image, drop it down here. Alright, great. So drop this as well. Uh-huh. Okay, so not bad. So let's see if with our new size, if we can have up to 3 items here. So 1, 2, 3, and it sits properly. Make sure you align things properly as well. So well distributed, grouped, position in the center. And now I can duplicate, right? So we just have like some products sitting, right? So I think at this point you can decide to say you want to put a tiny bit of navigation. I think time is already moving fast, so you can decide to say you want a tiny bit of navigation showing page 1, page 2, page 3, and all that. So let's just assume we have 1, 2, 3. I'm sure you understand what I mean. So let's just say 1. So I just group that so we can have 2, 3, 4, 5. So let's say we just have like 5 products based on the items that we got from our database or something like from the backend. Just a quick oh wow, that was fast. So let's stop at 4, and I'm just going to show that this is active, right? Just make it a little bit dark, and the others probably brighter than this. Okay, so just so that we have like other pages. Of course, you have different pricing, different product image. So this is just a wireframe. You don't need those images whatsoever. You're just building your layout, and finally you have like the footer, right? So you have like the footer sitting somewhere around here. Of course, the footer can cover this whole area. So you have the content right here in the footer. You can have maybe like newsletters and those kind of stuff. That's why I say it depends on your research, the research you've conducted, because you're not just making assumptions. You're building for a client. You have to be sure that you're solving a business problem, right? So this is what we have. And also you can now decide to implement this on mobile. Every design you do, always try to make sure you come up with something good on mobile as well. Your mobile design will definitely look different. Will definitely look different. You might want to have like the same level of components, but of course it will look different, look smaller. You also need to implement your layout grid. It's good. You can use your rulers, but I mean this is great. So for this, I'll go with 8, and also have not 80. I think I usually use 30. So this some of these options are just the way. So now you see, you can visualize that spacing you want. As a matter of fact, if you can also use the this layout grid to also watch your boundary for the rows, right? That is also very practical. 30. So now you can visualize this properly, and put your measurements put your ruler, and use your ruler to make sure you have the boundary well defined. Probably hide these items. So at this point, you can start putting in some of these items. We can put in our text as well, but of course, you need to have like a well defined. Say this is the font size I want for the web. This is the font size I want for mobile. It has to be well defined. So okay, yeah. So one thing you need to always remember is the fact that you're watching out basically for three things, which I said is information design, navigation design, and also the interface design, more generally. But those are like the three main elements of wireframe or low fidelity designs. So just make sure you're always watching out for those things and try to avoid. The over designing your wireframes. It's basically a wireframe talking about the positions of elements. Probably on the mobile, you might have a different interface where you might want to show like the user details. Remember, we have our logo here. So let's say you want to also show this logo here, and after showing the logo, this is the home screen, right? On other pages, you might have like a back button, right? This is the home screen. You might also want the logo to be in the center. I mean, it's your design preference. But I'm going to leave this here just because I want to have like my user a picture showing here, which of course I will use like a circle for that. So like more like the profile image, so that user's image showing up there. Then you have this set of items as well, which is the next thing. But of course, you have to make sure also optimize this to give you. So I'm going to take off. I'm going to pick only one item from here. Take this off. Paste it in here. So I'm trying my best to be very fast so that I won't. We've spent time already, and I don't want you to. Yeah. So I think we're rounding up right now. So that's 20. Let's drop this. Too much information. So make sure you have a good boundary for displaying these guys, right? So it's also scrollable, right? Then you have the text. Yeah, you must always watch out for alignment as well, right? So you might want to say maybe this does not show, maybe this is more like an advert or something. This does not show there, and the next thing should just be this set of items, which is more like all medical products showing up next. And of course, you might want to also reduce the size of this if that is one thing you want to do, or you might say because it's scrollable, you want to have it under, or you might even go ahead and take the items from here and just say they have to click on this, make presentable, then showcasing it to your client and say, okay, this is where we put this, is where we put this. We're going to have like general company image, display somewhere around here for branding, or using your brand colors, blue and yellow, or maybe yellow and red. So basically that is it. And I hope you understand what I've done so far. We didn't do anything complex. Pretty basic components and your rectangles and your just random shapes, right? So I hope you understand me and I hope you enjoyed this few minutes of practical wireframing session. Thank you very much and have a wonderful night. Okay.